Funding for Elwood City Limits is brought to you by Chander LaFave Boughton, Christine Wong, Christopher Ifill, Crescent Fresh, Dan Mike Dawson Silva, Emily K., Froppy, Ian Collis, Jake Bailey, Joe Sue, John DuLong, John Griswold, Kevin Noon, Leanne S., Light Relentless, Macy Ball, Riley Stevens, Ross Ward, Sam Solero, Stella, and Teresa. Become a patron today at patreon.com/Elwood City Limits and get access to exclusive audio and more. Thank you. Gather around, my children, and I will tell you the terrifying tale of when the power went out at the Wal-Mart.
So I don't know how many listeners follow you and I on Twitter. I think we both have locked Twitter accounts. Me, because I'm about to... I'm trying to appear as a communications professional.
You're about to break bad into your field of study.
Yeah, I'm not even that uncouth on Twitter, but I like to make, a post here and there, and I'm trying to appear as a professional, so I have a locked Twitter account, but you're welcome to send me a follow request at Lucas_Mancini at twitter.com. And you just have a locked Twitter account. I'm not sure why, but hey, that's your prerogative. But if the lucky listeners who do follow you, and what's your Twitter again, Will?
At William Y, spelled WILLYUMWHY.
The listeners lucky enough to follow you on Twitter know that you recently were at a, as I like to call them, a night Walmart after dark. And you somehow resisted just petty theft. Just because I was looking at that picture and I was like, what if you just stole a pack of combos or something? Who would know?
So this was an interesting thing here. Like, today is my kind of day off of this week. It's WrestleMania week, and I'm currently in the middle of my minimum wage gauntlet to get to WrestleMania, my Kofi Kingston style gauntlet to the main event.
And ironically, Daniel Bryan is capitalism in this situation.
And so today is my day off. It's the day the Usos were like, "It's good luck, Us, we forfeit." And so I had to get groceries today because I'm out of food. I normally go to a Walmart that's fairly close to where I live, about like a 10-minute drive or something. And I'm in the middle of grocery shopping, and this is the first time it's ever happened to me. The power just goes out. It's very windy out today, so I guess that's going to be affecting some power systems. And so...
I believe one Winnie T. Pooh would describe it as a blustery day.
It is a blustery kind of day outside. And I was rumbly in my tumbly because I don't have any groceries. So, if you ever wanted to know about the protocol for what happens when a Walmart goes off the grid, gets out of power, essentially they have the staff kind of round everybody up and kind of bring them to the front of the store with all of their stuff. There was a period of time where I certainly could have packed something into my jacket if I wanted to. I did not.
No, you're not a rude boy. You're not you're lawful good. You're not gonna steal any some Twizzlers.
No,
from the night Walmart.
No, especially from a place like Walmart where it's like you don't necessarily have to feel super bad about given what they are and what they do.
Victimless crime.
Yeah, exactly. No, I didn't want to get in on all that, but I also couldn't buy the groceries that I had already gotten, and they were just like, yeah, the power's not going to come back on until like 4 o'clock. And I'm like, oh, great. Now I have to go to another Walmart that is 20 minutes away. So mildly inconvenienced. It was pretty funny of just like being that social experience of like the lights go out at a grocery store and everybody's like, well, what happens now? So that was
what happens when the lights go out at the grocery store.
And they had to immediately start covering up like all the perishable items like meat and fruit and stuff like that. I felt bad for the people who work there, or actually maybe good because like might be like an extended break for them. But for the people who really have to scramble when like the power goes off, that's no fun. Anyway, it's a funny old part of my funny old day, and now We get to actually like make some of that humor ourselves. I mean, maybe, depending on who you talk to. With Elwood City Limits, it's the episodic Arthur podcast. We are getting close to the end of the 6th season of Arthur here in this episode. My name's Will Young, and my co-host is Lucas Mancini.
Hello.
So, yeah, we're on the penultimate episode of the season. I'm really hoping that we can see this through before I head overseas with my soon-to-be wife.
Bermuda, Jamaica. Ooh, I wanna take you to Key Largo, Montego. Where are you going, by the way? I guess we should say. I don't want you to get like killed by like a stalker, but I didn't know you were going overseas. I knew you were going on a honeymoon, but
for any of our South American listeners, I'm going to Cuba.
Ooh, Cuba.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, very much looking forward to a lot of sun and a lot of swimming and just a lot of time to do not very much at all. That's sounds good to me. Yeah, that's going to be ramping up. I'll have hopefully when we record sometime next week, I'll be able to kind of give you a little bit more about, the upcoming wedding and stuff like that. I also don't want to keep going on about my wife, my wedding. Yeah, like
I'm sure it's a welcome reprise from what we would usually be talking about this time of year, which is like, so Will, who do you think will win in the triple threat match between Becky Lynch, Charlotte Flair, and Ronda Rousey?
Well, I mean, given the fact that at some point this month we are probably going to be doing a filibuster, maybe we want to save our opinions on WrestleMania until after it happens.
You're right. Not only is WrestleMania coming up, but there's also it's the spring anime season. It's like prime filibuster content days because the spring anime season's about to start. WrestleMania is happening, so we're in luck. It's a ripe vein for content, especially after the last filibuster where I feel like both you and I were like husks. Or maybe just me. But
I know, dude. I was a wreck on that last filibuster. And if you want
only the best for our Patreon subscribers.
And if you want to hear more content like that with us at our emotional and physical limits, go to patreon.com/Elwood City Limits. We just got a new patron in the last few days, so thank you very much. I believe that's Kevin. I will have to update the opening once again, which I don't mind doing at all. Also, speaking of our fans, we have a couple of correspondences from them over at elwoodcitylimits@gmail.com. Before we start this episode of Arthur, I always like to dip into the mailbag, and if you'd like your correspondence read on the air, you can certainly do so over there. elwoodcitylimits@gmail.com. This one comes in from Kevin. Hey, Will and Lucas. Big fan of the podcast, first time writing. Currently working my way through the backlog, and I'm on season 3. You're halfway there. I'm writing you guys to share my thoughts on the portrayal of learning disabilities in Arthur. I'm a freshman education major in college, and I thought George's portrayal of dyslexia in this episode, this email was titled "The Boy with His Head in the Clouds Reply." So we're talking about that one. We just talked about that a couple of episodes ago. Check it out on the timeline here. I don't personally have dyslexia, so I don't know what it's like in a personal way, but I've worked with kids who do and studied the effects of it on a child's education. I think that episode does a good job of introducing the topic to kids with or without dyslexia. This episode also got me thinking about learning disabilities in general, and I realized that Buster would probably be a good candidate for ADHD. Obviously, he has trouble focusing in school and starting assignments, so that's the most obvious sign. He also has hyperfixations like aliens, conspiracy theories, video games, which are things that someone with ADHD gets extremely fascinated by. Also, once Buster gets focused on something, he really gets into it and gets hyper-focused. I've always related to Buster, even as a child, and as someone who has ADHD, he always has a special meaning to me. I doubt they're going to confirm this at this point in the Arthur series, but I like to keep it in the back of my mind. So that's an interesting take on it from Kevin. We did get a little bit of insider kind of look at things from your perspective in that episode, Lucas, as you also have dyslexia. But this read on Buster is an interesting one as well.
It's interesting. I don't know about like I think, you know what, if that's what you see from the character, then I think that's great, and I think that's a great example of representation. You know, I'm someone where, like, sometimes people meet me and they assume I have ADHD, and that's, we talked about this in the episode briefly, but that's how we figured out I was dyslexic, was I was going to get tested for ADHD, and they came up with dyslexia. Not sure how that works, but So I don't necessarily think it just the overt symptoms of someone would have ADHD necessarily means they have it. Like I know a guy in my class in school who has ADHD, and he seems like the most. That just seems like the opposite of what he is, but that's what he has. But then again, like who am I to say, right? Like if that's what you see in the character, I think that's wonderful.
Yeah, for sure. I actually got tested for any learning disabilities last year, very late in the game. But like some of these symptoms that Kevin talks about in his email is stuff that I relate to myself, and I wondered if maybe it was a sign of ADD or ADHD. It turns out that I don't believe that I have either of those particular disabilities, but I'm aware of kind of the testing that goes into that, and agreed. I do think it's interesting that people can kind of read this stuff into their behaviors, and I wouldn't put it past Arthur to someday in the future maybe tackle that very issue with Buster. You never know, especially because I feel like now it's becoming a little easier to talk about these kinds of issues within the realm of like a kids show. And we also have another email from our friend Pretty Cool Stairs. Hey, Will and Lucas. In my last email, I told you guys about the 2002 Vote-A-Rama special. That was actually in our last episode that just came out last week. Ironically, PBS is doing something similar again right now. There's a selection of 25 shows on the Arthur website where you can pick your top 3. It's a pretty good mix of episodes, and about half have already been discussed on the podcast. It sounds like there will be a marathon of these episodes during the weekend of May 11th on the PBS Kids 24/7 live stream and TV channel. So viewing might be limited to the United States, but it's probably worth trying to vote wherever you are. And he has the link right here. It is pbskids.org/Arthur/marathon. And I think I'm going to vote for my top 3 episodes right now. So
Interesting.
So I'm going to take a look through here and see which ones we've done. Okay, so we have both April 9th episodes. And then I'm going to work my way backwards here. Now we're starting to get into episodes we've done before. We have Prunella's Special Edition and The Secret Life of Dogs and Babies. The Best of the Nest episodes. We have Arthur and the Big Riddle and Double Dare. DW Tailspins and Prunella Gets It Twice. Oh, we have the Blizzard episode. And we also have The Contest in here as well. The Chip.
Those are that ain't a bad list, Will. Those are some certified classics.
The Chips. The Chip duology is in here.
Oh my gosh.
Arthur's Almost Live, Not Real Music Festival. We have Buster's Back and the Ballad of Buster Baxter. That's a good one. We have Arthur Meets Mr. Rogers, DW Snow Mystery, and Team Trouble. We're going all the way back to season 1.
Yeah, these episodes be hitting.
This is hard. We have Arthur and the Crunch Cereal Contest, and we have Arthur and DW's Baby. Man, okay, so I'm gonna commit to 3 of these right now. And we do also have some newer episodes on here, one of them including the episode that with Neil Gaiman. So that one that has made the rounds before. Okay, so I'm going to commit to this. I'm going to vote for Arthur's Baby and DW's Baby. I'm going to vote for Arthur Meets Mr. Rogers and Draw. And I'm going to scroll down a little bit more. This is hard. Like some of these.
I know. I'm not committing to picking this on the spot. I would not be able to.
I'm going to pick the Blizzard and the Rat Who Came to Dinner. And I'm going to submit my votes. Good. And yeah, okay. So that's going to be on the PBS Kids 24/7 channel and live stream starting at 8 a.m. on Saturday, May 11th. So I will try to make that. And yes, it is restricted to the United States and territories. So thanks for profiting off of my choices, United States, and thanks for giving me nothing. That's nice of you. All right, you guys can check that out too, and hopefully you can enjoy the marathon as well. Also, a bit more irony. In one of the transitions for Whom the Bell Tolls, a calendar is seen with the date May 5th. So maybe Will was subconsciously confusing the date when DW lost her voice with Star Wars Day. Could be. I do have a friend who's going to Star Wars Celebration, he told me yesterday. So that's in Chicago this year. He's going to get to see the new trailer and the new poster before me and before everybody.
I'm excited to hear about the Respawn Entertainment Star Wars game.
Mm-hmm.
I've been having so much fun with Apex, and I love the 2 Titanfall games. That's what I'm excited for.
Yeah, hopefully it's something good. And also, Pretty Cool Stairs wishing me a congrats on the upcoming wedding. Thank you very much. Enjoy the big day. Just don't let the ring fall down to the organ pipes. I will be watching out for it. And I will also say the flower girl in our wedding is 100 times cuter than Cousin Cora was.
Damn. You hear that, Cousin Cora? Bah, bah! There's some shots from Will coming at your head top.
Speaking of Cousin Cora, also listener to our show, Arthur and Buster BFFL on YouTube. So April Fool's just happened, and I actually am liking this new trend of where content creators are using April Fool's to kind of go outside of their formula a little bit and just kind of do strange or offbeat kind of video ideas. For example, former guest on the show, Nitro Rad, had a really great April Fool's special this year. Check it out. And so did Arthur and Buster BFFL with Why You Should Love Cousin Cora, and I really like that video. I'll try to link that at some point, actually, on our social, so check that out. All right, thank you both for your lovely emails, Kevin and Pretty Cool Stairs over at elwoodcitylimits@gmail.com. Season 6 is coming to an end, and you know what that means. We're going to be looking at what your favorite episodes of the season are, so start thinking about that. As we get into this one, Lucas, it's time we talked about the good sport, and last week I mentioned that this is one with a special guest in it, and we get them pretty much right away.
That's right. We have Michelle Kwan.
Michelle Kwan.
Which, did you know, how familiar are you with Michelle Kwan, Will? I feel like I don't know about any figure skaters that aren't like criminals or Canadians.
So Michelle Kwan, mostly by name, of like, oh, she's, you know, obviously one of the best figure skaters in the world because you know who she is by name. But honestly, I was not really familiar with any of her figure skating before, during, or after this. In fact, doing research for the show was where I kind of looked up a lot of her accolades.
Maybe if she had committed a couple more assaults and then had like a movie made about her, I would know about her. Or if she had like gone on to become a boxer.
Or if she had like a doubles partner that everybody was wondering if they were like kissing or whatever.
Even though they were brother and sister. Yeah. Or if she was Canadian. But unfortunately, she's none of those things. She's just a famous figure skater, but that's still very impressive in its own right. And you're right, I did know her in name. We get this opening segment where like Arthur's talking about, like growing up and having your friends become a famous person. Yeah. And I feel like we get this imagination sequence that is one that I think Arthur's done many, many times, and I'm totally fine with that because it's hilarious every time. And it's kind of a really funny trope for this show to like hone it on, but it's like the trope where one of the Arthur kids becomes really successful and one of them is not so much, and like does a remember me? Like this has happened when like Arthur was doing like a big like concerto, like he was playing like a big piano concert, and then was it DW who was like an orphan?
DW was eating potato chips as like a form of revenge against him.
But yeah, like I feel like this has happened multiple times where like Braid's about to get the Nobel Prize in the future, and then Binkie's like a waiter, and like it's like, Braid, remember? And he's like, you taught me how to
fart in my armpit.
Noises. Yeah.
Have you ever Arthur poses the question if you ever wonder if any of your friends will become famous. Lucas, do you have anybody that you kind of went to school with that ended up being famous?
I'm glad you asked. So, and then Francine skates by, and she's talking about the 2014 Olympics, which are, I guess, supposed to be the far-flung future at this point.
Yeah, big time.
But Francine's talking about how she's going to compete in the 2014 Olympics, and it reminded me that I actually went to high school with we're not entirely certain. I think she's in the running to be an Olympian at the 2020 Games. Hannah McIntosh, who is going to be representing Canada on the canoe team. I think this is one of the first years they have canoe or some sort of rowing that wasn't in the Olympics before but will be in the Olympics now. She's going to be representing Canada, I think. So she's an Olympian. And then, of course, and I think I've talked about this on the show before, but I had even a class with the people would say one of the best hockey players in the world. Nathan McKinnon was in my grade 10 English class before he, of course, brought the Mooseheads to that QMJHL championship, and then went on to be the number 1 draft pick in the NHL and now plays for the Colorado Avalanche. But yeah, those are sort of the two, and especially in terms of Francine talking about like through athletics becoming famous, those are the two that I went to school with.
I feel like the mark of a real Nova Scotian is when you have a semi-famous to famous hockey player, and like you either know somebody who knew them, or like because like a friend of mine in junior high, his sister dated the goalie Jaguar for a little while, J.S. Jaguar. Mm-hmm. And what was the other one? I had friends who like met Sidney Crosby at a party before he was famous and stuff like that, or like grew up down the street from him, all this kind of stuff. The closest claim to fame that I have of knowing somebody famous is that I went to high school and was high school friends with Juno-winning producer Ryan Hemsworth.
I've heard you talk about this before. It's funny. I was lamenting the loss of the Ryan Hemsworth posters on Lower Water Street just the other day on Twitter. It's another famous Haligonian. He's got that sick song with E40. I didn't go to school at the same time as them, but I went to the same junior high as Ellen Page. She graduated like 2 years before me, though.
I went to the same high school as Ellen Page.
No way!
Yeah.
Well, we have that in common. What other famous people do I kind of know?
No. Oh, excuse me. I'm sorry. A friend of mine, I think, went to the same... I think probably the same junior high as Ellen Page. Yeah, I think I went to the same high school as Sarah McLachlan. She graduated from my old high school.
My ex-girlfriend's dad went to the same high school as Sarah McLachlan while Sarah McLachlan was going to that high school, and he did not have kind things to say about her. So
I find is something that like I hear from a lot of people is like, in fact, with all these people that I mentioned so far, the stories of like people who knew somebody were just like, yeah, they're like a jerk or da-da-da. And I'm like, all right, so whatever kind of thing. But I find that's more prevalent than not, and the more I hear people being like, yeah, they're not as nice as you think, I'm just like, well, okay, maybe they're not as mean as you think. Anyway, some little claims to fame here. I wonder if anybody in one of our high school classes is like, I went to high school with the guy who does the Arthur podcast.
The Arthur podcast, yeah, all the time, I bet.
Yeah, so I agree with you. I did like this brief look into the life of old Binky, where he's like this waiter at this maitre d' at Brain's Nobel Prize session here. And yeah, so Francine would have been looking to go to Sochi, the 2014 Winter Games in Sochi, but I guess she didn't make it. That's too bad. Kind of Arthur and DW are doing this literally cold open on the ice rink. We see shots of the guest of the show, Michelle Kwan, kind of skating by, and DW's like, hey, isn't that? And Arthur keeps interrupting her. So Michelle Kwan, just a quick rundown for anybody who doesn't know, she is a figure skater. She's a 2-time Olympic medalist, a 5-time world champion, and a 9-time U.S. champion as well. She's the most decorated figure skater in U.S. history. And she's also retired currently. She's also done a lot of other stuff, including she's made appearances on Arthur, as well as Family Guy, The Simpsons, Sabrina the Teenage Witch, and the direct-to-video sequel Mulan 2. And she also had her own video game, the Michelle Kwan figure skating computer game.
Oh, it's not even... I was going to guess if it was like a DS game or not, but no, it's a computer game. Interesting.
PC game. And fun fact, she was 21 when this episode came out. So by this point, Michelle Kwan was already something of a household name. She was 21. Younger than both of us. In fact, she's so famous, Lucas, she gets her own title card. Did you notice? Did you notice that?
Oh yeah. I did notice that actually. How it's like her and who is it with her? Is it Francine? Yeah.
So and they're rolling out.
Not only that, Will, but I think the most important accomplishment of all is that she is apparently an alumna. She's from Elwood City in the Arthur universe. Usually when they introduce these real world characters, they're from like where they're actually from, but they've retconned Michelle Kwan's life to have her be from Elwood City.
Yeah, and she went to Lakewood Elementary, at which they're all gathered around a poster celebrating her, and Muffy says, Michelle Kwan went to this dump? So that was a really good reading. So Michelle Kwan is in this episode because she is apparently a native of Elwood City and a graduate of Lakewood Elementary, and she's going to be presenting the Athlete of the Year award, which immediately strikes the fancy of Francine, who figures that she's got to be a shoo-in, and Muffy agrees with her. They are both figuring that she has got to be the number one pick for this, and there's even a fantasy of Francine meeting Michelle Kwan.
Which is what this reminded me of is Francine's talking about how like hockey is more difficult and more of a sport than figure skating.
Yeah.
Do you remember that CBC reality show where it was like Dancing with the Stars, but instead of a celebrity being paired up with a dancer, it was literally a figure skater being paired up with a hockey player, and like Ty Domi was on it. I feel like there was only one season, but do you have any recollection of this, or am I crazy?
I don't.
Yeah, there was like this CBC reality show, and there was all these hockey players that had never figure skated before, and they would do figure skating routines with like real life figure skaters. They each had a partner, and Ty Domi was on it.
Battle of the Blades, it was called.
Yeah, Battle of the Blades.
Apparently, this got 4 seasons, man.
What?
Yeah. Let me see here.
This might be, for our American listeners, Battle of the Blades might be the most Canadian thing ever.
That actually sounds really interesting. I don't know why I missed this. This would have been late 2000s, it looks like. Huh. I can't believe that I didn't, that I wasn't aware of this. By that point, I would have still had, like, cable and stuff, so that's no excuse. Okay. Yeah, there's Ty Domi with Chris.
There he is
in season 1. There he is. Surprisingly, he's I don't recognize. Oh, Theo Fleury, I recognize from the second season.
Theo Fleury was on it. What the heck?
Not a whole lot of. Well, actually, I shouldn't say. I don't know if these people are like household names or not. It's hard for me to tell. Anyway, yeah, Battle of the Blades, and they were doing this for charity. Interesting.
Anyway, they prove. Francine's obviously, much like yourself, has not seen Battle of the Blades because they prove that figure skating is as, if not more, difficult than playing hockey in Battle of the Blades.
100%.
Some of the hockey players have quite a difficult time wrapping their heads around it. So
100%, and like even in this fantasy thing here, where it's like Francine thinking about meeting Michelle Kwan, she like immediately is just like. It's like what's the difference between figure skating and hockey? And she's like, well, hockey's a sport. And I'm like, oh brother, like from immediately just the way that Francine was kind of talking down to figure skating, I was like, I cannot wait for Francine to get hers by the end of this episode. Not in a way of just like malevolent or anything. I'm just like, they're clearly building up Francine for a fall here, and I'm really excited to see how that happens.
So Michelle Kwan's going to be presenting this Athlete of the Year award. Mr. Haney's making the announcement of who's it going to be. Mm-hmm. And Francine's all pumped up. She thinks she's a shoo-in. But then it turns out, and like it's kind of ridiculous to the way like everybody's pointing at Francine and smiling. Mm-hmm. But then he announces it's Jenna, who we haven't seen in a minute now.
Yeah.
And Francine even we get the old cheer, even though like you're so certain you don't even hear them say the other name. Francine cheers. Excuse me, thinking it was her, but then it's Jenna. Jenna gets the award for her badminton.
Yeah. Jenna's not really a regularly featured character just yet. I'm looking forward to when we can kind of use her a bit more. So this was a nice way to kind of do it. And we did get a moment of, I know that this exact thing has happened at an awards show like semi recently, where like somebody thinks they've won and they're getting up and walking and then they like have to stop. But Francine literally does that, and Arthur's just like, it's not you, and she's like, what? So Francine, like Jenna is. Like Francine was all ready for this to be her, and Jenna is also very humble. She's basically almost taken by surprise. It seems like she just goes up to the podium, just like, wow, thank you. Not exactly as charismatic, let's say, as Francine, and she immediately appeals to Principal Haney about this decision, which is totally gonna get Francine on your good side. I will say here. Herb Haney with one of the most centrist, like, medium take things to say. He's just like, how Francine's like, how could you make Jenna the Athlete of the Year? And he just goes, Making choices is never easy, Miss Frensky. And I was just like,
yeah, Mr. Haney's the Beto O'Rourke of
ooh, timely.
of Arthur characters. I'm surprised we haven't seen Mr. Haney photographed standing on a table and talking about how much he loves punk music. But yeah, Francine talks about how she doesn't even think badminton's a real sport, which obviously she hasn't seen. Forgive me for butchering this pronunciation. Hanabado, that badminton anime. That shit was intense. She says no one's had like a bloody nose from badminton, which is like, that can't be true. I feel like people get hurt playing badminton all the time.
So I mean, it's not my place to say how intense badminton is or isn't, but it is like, so Jenna is a badminton player. She plays on another team, which I'm missing. Like, Francine is countering this by being like, I'm the captain of this team. I'm the captain of this team. She says, I'm the captain of my Temple's basketball team, which another reference to the fact that Francine is Jewish. And she also says she's the only person that could sit on Binky's head, which apparently should count as an athletic endeavor. But aside from Jenna being on multiple teams, she's also a volunteer coach for I think it was the wheelchair basketball team. And she like volunteers her time, which Francine definitely doesn't do. And right away I was just like, okay, that makes a lot of sense why they would make that decision. So Francine isn't able to kind of see past the kind of the quantity of her athletic involvements as opposed to the quality of them, I guess you could say. And by converse here, like, Francine looks, very petty, and eventually, like, we cut to her, and she's like wailing and crying to Muffy that she didn't get the award. Whereas, hearing about Jenna from Principal Haney, like, she sounds like a really nice person.
Yeah, especially like all her outreach that she's doing to help. Again, Principal Haney says it's less based on academic achievement. It's more about, Jenna's overall mentality of helping others is what's greatly contributed to her being regarded as such a good athlete. It's kind of like when John Cena gets all those awards for visiting all the Make-A-Wish Foundation kids, even when he's not the champion, to put it in wrestling terms. But Muffy is firmly on Team Francine. She drafts up a petition, and she's sort of standing in front of the school trying to get people to sign it. Arthur chimes in saying that, isn't this going to hurt? Arthur, dressed like me, by the way, chimes in and says that, isn't this going to hurt Jenna's feelings? Muffy doesn't really care. Continues to hand out the petitions and says she doesn't care if it even takes a whole hour until she kind of succumbs to the cold and calls her dad to come pick her up.
Yeah, I mean, we kind of have to search for nice things to say about Muffy. This will seem like a backhanded compliment because she goes too far with this. Yeah. But
I'm with it. I think I know what you're about to say, and I'm with you on this one.
Say what you will about Muffy, she is dedicated to Francine.
She's ride or die.
She is, for sure. And that is admirable in its own way, but it's also not in ways we'll get into. I will say also in the scene where like Francine is crying to Muffy, I really love the delivery of her like bawling out the things that Haney said to her. It's just like, it really does emphasize a lot of what Francine's character is, and I think that a lot of the stuff that she does in this episode is very true to her character versus the last episode we were talking about where DW lost her voice, where we felt like people were kind of not either acting out of character or just not acting like super likable. This is definitely, even though Francine isn't likable in this episode, it's definitely true to who she is as a person. Like, her having this tantrum about like, I play all of the sports and am so good, why am I not getting the thing, is absolutely 100% her. Like you said, Muffy kind of has the I'm just looking at Arthur here, what he was dressed as. So she is unsuccessful with the petition because nobody wants to sign it. But we get eventually Francine does a kind of a 180 here at the request of Oliver Frensky, who, again, I miss dearly and I wish we got more of.
Well, but a little goes a long way. So he has this great line with Francine where he's like, well, I think you should, be the bigger person about this. Mm-hmm. And Francine's like, well, why? And he's like, well, that's just like the right thing to do. And also it would make me proud of you. And it's like, oh, it's a solid reasoning. But Francine kind of interprets the wrong lesson from this. Because she kind of goes overboard with being the bigger person.
It's also a comedy cut because, like, at the next day at school, Francine's like, I decided to be the bigger person about it. And then we do a flashback to her and her dad. She's like, why do I have to be the bigger person about it? So she's interpreting this in a way that ends up being more hurtful. So she is being the good sport of the episode. She's like, the next day in school, she organizes, applause for Jenna, but holds it a little bit too long, and then begins to organize a party for her to celebrate her winning the award. We get a line here from Buster. I can't remember exactly if they said...
I do. He goes, it's
good.
called the Great Wall of China. Get it? The Great Wall? So we only hear the end of the joke.
Yeah.
I can't imagine what the start of the joke would be.
I wrote this down because it has been a long time since I've heard the punchline. Get it? Punchline?
Well, and then we sort of get that a callback to that joke when Francine's talking about organizing, again, trying a little too hard to be the bigger person, almost spitefully. She talks about organizing a party for Jenna to celebrate her athletic accomplishments. And she says, a party, P-A-R-T-Y, get it?
Mm-hmm. And they do end up organizing this party in
a bagel party.
A bagel party in Ratburn's classroom. I gotta say, there's a shot here of Binky with every one of his fingers has a bagel in it. I think about that a lot.
Yeah, that's how I'm trying to be. That is definitely, that's a big move right there, is bagel hands. It made me think, like, I don't know how, like, is this just an Arthur thing, or do people actually have bagel parties where there's just a big old bowl of bagels in the middle? But, boy, do I ever like bagels.
Bagels are great. And I think we should, next time you and me do a commentary, I'll bring a thing of bagels.
Yeah, let's go. Some of the Montreal kind.
Yeah, ooh, I'll have to go looking for those. Well, I don't know. Maybe Pete's Fruitique might have them.
Pete's has them. There's a couple bagel places. There's that one on... this is great radio, by the way, for all of our out of Nova Scotia listeners. But there's the bagel place on Quimpool, and there's the bagel place on there's a place called Bagel that's in like a strip mall in Dartmouth. On your way to the McDonald Bridge, I pass it all the time.
Oh, you know what? I just passed by a bagel place on the Bedford Highway. It's like Izzy's Bagels or something.
Okay. Once again, amazing. Hey, if any of the listeners ever find yourself in the HRM area, now you know which bagel places to go to.
Yeah, you can have your own bagel party. You don't even need directions. So we do get this bagel party in Ratburn's class. Francine is very aggressively singing for "She's a Jolly Good Fellow." Like, she's really trying to pour this on, and then like Francine, like, she makes a speech, and it's like very clear that she cannot hide her contempt for Jenna. She's just like, we all think Jenna's great, even though I was supposed to win, and all that. Those kind of like really backhanded compliments, which does seem to be making Jenna a little uncomfortable, and I mean, it's making everybody uncomfortable. And Ratburn like shuts the party down because he can kind of see where it's coming from, and it's the next day at school. There's a great poster that Francine and Muffy make up. I love the picture of Francine looking angelic on the poster. She's like,
I was just gonna say, I have it paused at that. Francine is like, who, me?
Yeah, she's got her hands clasped almost like in prayer. It's really funny.
She has athlete of the year in scare quotes.
Oh, I didn't notice that. Oh, that's so mean. Yeah, it's like a come one, come all to a party for Jenna Morgan. And hang on, I'm just waiting for... I have the video really slowed down so I can play it in the background. I'm just waiting for it to get to this scare quotes. That's so mean. Like, it's... oh, man, there it is. That sucks. Hosted by Francine.
Well, speaking about mean, Muffy... So Jenna kind of freaks out and runs into the bathroom,
yeah,
knocking over paint, and small detail, Muffy walks through the paint. You can see her footsteps in the shot as they're leaving the bathroom. But Muffy goes the F off. Muffy starts laying into Jenna.
This is like maybe the most heartless Muffy's ever been. Like, she is contemptible at this moment because we see, like, Jenna has this reaction. She just sees a poster and is like, oh no, and then sees Francine and Muffy putting up more posters, and she's like, just like, stop, like, doing all this. And like Muffy takes it entirely the wrong way, like almost in a I don't know. It's like real kind of like she's trying to be a villain here because she's just like, I'm going to give her a piece of my mind. And Jenna's literally like crying in the bathroom. And Muffy's like, how dare you, like, not be appreciative of what we're doing for you. And it's just like, oh my God, read the room, Crosswire.
Hey, she's ride or die, like we said before.
And Jenna even admits to herself she's crying here. And she's just like, Muffy says something about like how, you shouldn't have even won Athlete of the Year. And Jenna's like, don't you think I know that? Don't you think I know that, like, Francine's so much better of an athlete than I am? And she, like, runs out of the bathroom crying, which Francine did overhear and kind of rebukes Muffy. And one of the closest analogs to swearing that we'll ever get in Arthur, Francine tells Muffy to stuff it. Like she's reading an Archie comic or something. Anyway, emotions are high, but Jenna is going to a special banquet that is televised for some reason. Must be on like public access or something. A televised ceremony for the Athlete of the Year, which Michelle Kwan is hosting, and Francine is like torturing herself.
So this is my favorite part of the whole episode is like baby boomer Francine yelling at the TV. Like this is just great. Like this is like any scene in like an 80s movie where like a drunk person's like, that should have been me up there. like it's like there's no one else in her apartment for some reason, and Francine's just like vindictively being like, oh please, like watching the TV, like hopping around her room to no one in particular. I loved this.
Yeah, she's just making fun of we get to this part where she's openly mocking figure skating, which again I find very strange, especially because Francine, has learned how to skate and knows how difficult that process must have been. So, dancing on skates, not easy, and I'm kind of a little surprised she didn't know that. But also,
well, it's not just you telling her that, because then Michelle Kwan pulls a Ringu and jumps out of the TV, pulling Francine into the TV dimension.
Brings her into Videoland like she's Captain N or something.
Exactly.
And so we get this dream sequence where Michelle Kwan, and this is what I was waiting for the whole episode, and we do get a great payoff to this. So it's like Francine being really crummy the whole episode to Jenna, and also about like figure skating. So in her dream, Francine is forced to put on figure skates as Michelle Kwan literally skates circles around her. And it's just like, I guess this is harder than you thought, huh? And Francine like, stop, it's too hard. It's great. It's so good. And then she eventually wakes up. It was indeed a dream, a very specific haunting dream. And Francine goes to school the next day and does make up with Jenna, apologizes for her. In fact, Jenna extended the olive branch where she almost didn't have to. She got a signed poster of Michelle Kwan, but signed to Francine, the best athlete at Lakewood Elementary, the best hockey player at Lakewood Elementary. So that was really nice of Jenna to do. She seems like a very decent, I almost said human being, character. Seems like a very decent character. And they kind of end off with like Francine being like, I still think figure skating's kind of goofy, and Jenna says, that's okay. I still think hockey's kind of dumb.
And that's where this episode ends. No word from us kids this time.
No. Except from us. We'll be right back. Hi there, Elwood City Limits listener. Just a quick note here from your buddy, your pal, Will Young, that this show is supported by all of you, listeners just like you, by the following ways: Facebook.com/Elwood City Limits, Twitter @ECL Podcast, Tumblr, ElwoodCityLimits.tumblr.com, and Instagram @Elwood City Limits. Drop us a line on social media. We'd love to hear from you, and give us a like, a heart, whatever it is. Email elwoodcitylimits@gmail.com. You can get your email read here on the air. Just send it to us and let us know what you think of the episode, of the show, of anything in particular that we might have talked about or that's on your mind. And you can find the podcast by going to elwoodcitylimits.libsyn.com, and you can find it at your local podcast provider. Now, if the show is not on a service that you use all the time and you'd like to change that, make sure to drop us a line and we will get it on there as soon as possible. All right, let's get back to the episode now, already in progress. Okay, we're back, and
So not to cut you off, Will, but the reason
go ahead.
we were just talking about how we didn't get to see a word from us kids in the video we were watching, and I really felt that this time because the next episode immediately starts with the cold open, and I had to like rewind to this like 3 times. I was like, whoa, what?
You felt like you needed a little bit of a palate cleanser before you got into the next story here?
A little bit of like, let's say, whiplash, because this next opening shot, the very first audio visual, this is almost indescribable. I encourage anybody listening to this podcast to look this up themselves. Let me just say that. Okay, so we open on Buster sitting on a porch, strumming. Is it a banjo?
Yeah.
Yes, it's a banjo, and he's got like a pork pie hat and cowboy pants and boots, and he's singing this country song, which I can only describe as. Will, are you familiar with the song? It's all the rage with the Zoomers right now. Old Town Roads. By Lil Nas X.
We have the same note here because I said Buster playing the role of Lil Nas X.
Okay.
Got them horses in the back.
So as we all know, Old Town Roads is a certified. It's a hitter. It is like definitely like song of the summer, if not song of the year right now. Early contender.
Yeah, it's all right.
Truly a seminal mixing of hip hop and country. Not since Lil Tracy and Lil Uzi Vert's Like a Cowboy. Like a farmer. Not since Lil Uzi Vert and Lil Tracy's Like a Farmer. Yeehaw, I'ma pick up your daughter. Not since that have we heard such a combination, a blending of genres. And Buster comes in with this country song, which might be, and it may be because it's definitely the most new to me. I have not heard it before. Might be my favorite like Arthur song since like the Art Garfunkel days of old. Like this song is incredible.
It's really good. And I will say also Buster's voice actor, Daniel Brochu, doing a very good country type of accent throughout the song. The point of the song is that it is the cold open of it. Like, I don't even know what the title would be, but it just kind of, stuff that feels bad. If I may borrow one of the lines, history tests are crummy, soggy toast ain't yummy. And the weatherman on the radio, he just lied.
Oh my gosh, those are like, what a poet.
Or when you're playing with your poodle, he bites you on your noodle, you hit your head on the bed. That's got us smart. But nothing feels so bad, makes you so darn sad as to when a babysitter sits upon your heart. And this is directed at Arthur, who then gets incredibly nervous, calls for the song to be stopped, and is just like, can we like cut? We're not doing a show this week. But then Buster's like, no, come on, it's a good story. And he even says, roll the tape, Greg, which is a reference to Arthur director Greg Bailey. I looked that up.
Not since in Generation X's theme. Or no, it's Triple H's old team where it's like, get your finger off, where it's like, get your finger off the switch, Dunn.
Yo, Dunn, keep your finger off the switch. All your stupid rules.
I love that song. I unironically love that song.
It's all right. It's pretty good. Yeah, this was a really inventive cold open and like immediately catches your attention. It's really fun. I thought this was a great idea. So the episode begins where Arthur and DW are in need of a babysitter because mom and dad are going out. A real black tie affair. They're dressed to the nines here.
Well, they're going to the opera.
The opera, that's right. Thank you.
Yeah.
And so Arthur is lamenting who the babysitter will be because normally one of their normal babysitters is Mrs. Grouse, who apparently makes them dance. Arthur doesn't go into any details, neither does DW, but DW just says, I like Mrs. Grouse. She makes us dance. And Arthur's like, I hate that though. And it's
I wrote down makes us dance WTF. I was like, I would despise that as a child.
Yeah, I also put a big question mark after that one. I'm just like, okay. But apparently they are having a new babysitter whose name is Sally McGill. And Arthur, again, thinking that this is going to be like some kind of monster who's going to be babysitting them. His vision of Sally McGill is like this woman in a button-down shirt with like rollers in her hair and a rolling pin who's like making him scrub the kitchen. It's basically like the Trunchbull from Matilda.
I wrote down, I've had many babysitters that kind of look like this woman. I don't know if they acted the same way, but Sally McGill, or at least Arthur's imagining of her, was fairly true to life. And also, Will, have you ever had like a babysitter you didn't like that you like hated?
I don't remember. Not off the top of my head. I mean, there've been ones that I gelled with better than others, but I don't remember any that I like especially hated. Did you?
Yeah, definitely. Well, it's funny. I was actually having this conversation with my parents the other day. Me and my sister were like waxing poetic about, remember all our babysitters. And all my little sister's memories of her babysitters were like all the bad things that they like. Just every time a babysitter would yell at us or whatever. I didn't have any of the same memories, and it's funny because the next thing this episode shows, all my memories of my babysitters was whatever video game console they had at the time. So it's like, okay, when I went to Nicola's place, they had an N64, so I could play Smash on it. When I went to Emily from across the street's place, she had a PlayStation 1 with Crash Bandicoot 3. When I went to Susie's place, she had a NES, and then eventually at a flea market, she bought an N64. But like those are literally the only memories I have of each babysitter is whatever game console they had at the time.
That's funny. One of my regular babysitters when I was younger is my sister's friend, who I still keep in contact with, Savannah. She had a Sega Genesis, and that was the first place I played that. She had Sonic the Hedgehog and X-Men, so that was great. Every time I'd go over to her place, I'd play Sega Genesis. Yeah, so Arthur...
Is that the X-Men game where Magneto's like, welcome to die?
No, that's X-Men, like the brawling game. This is like kind of a platformer a little bit. This is like you get to pick between Cyclops, Wolverine, Nightcrawler, and Gambit. So, no, not that one. It's the sound of it is very, very Genesis. So, check it out on YouTube. I think it's just called X-Men. Yeah, so Arthur is very much not looking forward to Sally McGill. She shows up. She's quite young. Mom says that she's 16, and she's rocking that bucket hat because that, as was the style at the time.
Yeah, she's coming through like Schoolboy Q.
I was big into, so like I wore baseball caps a lot when I was younger, and then I did have a bucket hat phase when I was like 10 or 11.
You were ahead of the curve. Again, if you were rocking that in like 2013, you would have been a cool guy.
Never been in danger of that. Anyway, Arthur is anticipating that she's going to like lay down the law essentially. But it turns out that Sally wanted to ask him what his favorite ice cream flavor is between Chunky Skunk and Choco Chimp. So I'm guessing Choco Chimp is probably chocolate and banana flavored. I'm just wondering what Chunky Skunk might be.
Well, I assume it's like white and black.
Oh yeah. Okay, there we go.
Maybe it's like Wowie. Maybe it's like Wowie Cowie.
Lucas, what's Wowie Cowie? Just for our non-maritime listeners.
Wowie Cow. I actually don't remember the specifics of. Let's go to cows.ca. By the way, wait a minute. Whoa. Okay. This is a very regional episode of Elwood City Limits because I have to comment on this, and that is when you type in Wowie Cowie into Google, the first result is, of course, the Wowie Cowie Cows flavor, which is a local ice cream franchise. But the second result is cowiewowie.ca, which is, well, if you had to guess what Cowie Wowie was, what would you say? Because...
is it a toy?
No, it's a craft producer of sun-grown cannabis in Cowichan Valley, Vancouver Island, home of the world-famous BC Bud. Mail order your cannabis today.
For goodness sakes. That's not even a different name. You just rearranged it.
Wowie Cowie is vanilla, English toffee marble, chocolate flakes, and Moo Crunch. What is Moo Crunch, you ask? Well, I will never know.
I feel like this is also becoming one of our episode tropes, is you typing something into Google to figure it out. I remember I had Wowie Cowie once when I was very young. Cow's ice cream. If you're ever down in Nova Scotia, check out Cow's ice cream. It's pretty good.
Or PEI.
Yes, in PEI. Although usually the lines around here are really long. So Chunky Skunk and Choco Chimp, very good. Looking out for that one, Lucas. So Arthur essentially kind of brushes her off first, but we later find Sally and DW playing a game called Dark Bunny 6: Attack of the Moomy on what looks to be a PlayStation, but if the controller was shaped like the Wu-Tang W.
Yeah, maybe they have the Wu-Tang controllers that came with Shaolin.
Shaolin style.
Yeah, Wu-Tang Shaolin style. Yeah, exactly.
She would be Sally would be upgraded to best babysitter of all time if she did that. It only kind of hit me when I was watching this episode of just like, Arthur comes in and he's like, wow, you have this game? And Sally's like, and he and Sally start playing it. It only kind of dawned on me that like, hey, wait a second. This is like a cartoon that is showing a girl as a prominent gamer and not making like a huge deal about it. That's really cool. Not to say that like, that shouldn't be encouraged or celebrated in a sense, but it's just like it's funny how gamer identity would become such a thing like 10 years later, and here it is, this episode in like 2001. It's just like, yeah, she plays video games. In fact, we find out later she plays video games more than both Arthur and Buster and her own boyfriend. Like, her own boyfriend doesn't like video games.
Well, yeah, I mean, like, this, again, this is true to life. Like, this happened to me. Like, when my next-door neighbor, Emily, who was, like, 16, when I was, like, I don't know, 8 or whatever, would babysit me, and they had a PS1 with Crash Bandicoot 3, and I would literally just, like, play Crash Bandicoot 3 for 3 hours, trying to get all Cortex, and she would play it, too. Like, this is, like, a very true-to-life situation.
Yeah, and I think that, it's, you don't realize when, it gets... people get whipped up into such a fervor about it, but it's like, yeah, girls play video games and they've been playing them for a long time. Like,
I would say, I would even take that one step further and be like, everybody plays video games. Like, literally everybody plays video games. And so,
for sure,
to like have that as like an identity, like that's why I identify as a quote unquote capital G gamer. Is like, okay, listen, like, there really isn't that much separating you from, like, a stay-at-home mom who just plays Farmville all day. Like, you're both just playing video games. So the idea that someone would use that as an identifier, it's not even a matter of, like, boys or girls as far as I'm concerned. It's like, yeah, like, you play video games. Like, so does everybody.
So Arthur and Sally play this long into the night until Mom and Dad come home. Dad dropping a line that I never thought that I would ever hear in this show, where he says, "Sorry, Arthur, Rigoletto is a short opera." All right, opera references. So Arthur very disappointed that Sally has to go. In fact, he's kind of he hangs around the door after Sally leaves, and he's kind of like a little bit entranced. So this is kind of like, Arthur feels a certain way about his cool babysitter.
Rigoletto is a short opera. It's only 65 minutes.
Wow. Oh, my goodness. That's like, I hope they had dinner as well.
Like, I know. Like, what a waste of an evening. Like, you go out, get all dressed up.
So at this point, Arthur is trying to concoct scenarios for Mom and Dad to go out so that Sally can come back and babysit them. We get like a forum on speed bumps in the community. He recommends Wagner's Ring Cycle, which is a 9-hour opera for them to go to. And eventually they bite when he has a coupon for like 20% off at Trattoria Verde, which Dad has been wanting to go to. And so Arthur, I got to say, I really love the mundane local happenings of Elwood City. It reminded me of like our time in like rural Nova Scotia when it's like
the radio, like being like we got something at the Friars Club, like
we got a clam bake going on. We got a couple of yard sales in the community. We got a dancing lesson. We got the Friars Club. It's adds a nice little bit of local flavor to Elwood City. I liked it. But unfortunately, Mom and Dad eventually do go out, but Mrs. Grouse ends up babysitting them instead of Sally. much to Arthur's chagrin. And by making them dance, we find out that she just kind of has the kids do swing dancing in the living room for some reason. I believe DW says something like, it helps with arthritis, and Arthur's like, I don't have arthritis. After this, we get an interlude with stick figure animation,
which I was just gonna say we haven't had for a really long time, and I think this one's a little like this one is. I know I always invoke the holy name of Teen Girl Squad. It's either Sticking Around or Teen Girl Squad that we talk about, but this one especially looks like Teen Girl Squad. I don't know why, but just the way the bodies are drawn, the black and white, the fact that I guess Arthur's doing it, and so you could almost, and the fact that he kind of saves his babysitter and almost is like, and the babysitter's like my hero at the end, is like exactly how like that episode of Teen Girl Squad where like Strong Bad shows up and then like all the teen girls are in love with him and they're like, Strong Bad! Like, I can't even do the voice. But it's like,
hey, the ugly one.
Oh, yeah, it's like, oh, hey, the ugly one. And they're like, oh, Strong Bad! That's so... oh, it's so hard to do.
I miss video games. I miss my mom. Yeah. Yeah, you're right. It does look like it's improved. We have seen like the kids do stick figure animation before, and Arthur's doing this one obviously because of how much he likes Sally. But he's also very embarrassed about it. Buster catches him, not really catches him. He just asks him what he's doing, and he's just like, nothing. Don't you have some reading to do? Because they're at the library at the time. Eventually Sally does babysit them again because they are going to, Mom and Dad have to fill in at like a Renaissance fair.
Yeah. Arthur's dad is in a full suit of armor, no undershirt.
Yeah. Ooh. I hope there's a breeze or something, because if there's any heat, that's gonna be rough goings. Mom at least has like, the classic like Guinevere costume with like the big hat and like the dress and everything. They're like filling in for catering at like a Renaissance fair or something. I was wondering if Mom and Dad had those costumes ready to go or if they were supplied.
I like to think that Dave's ready for any occasion that he needs to cater, and that it's his own personal suit of armor.
So Mom mentions that Sally is bringing over a friend to babysit them. So that night, he and Sally get ready to play some more Dark Bunny 6. But the doorbell rings, and it turns out that the person that is helping Sally to babysit is her boyfriend, Corey. And I loved this. In just one line, we get an idea of, like, Corey only has basically this one line, apart from another line that he has in, like, a fantasy of Arthur's, and he already, like, just seems like a geek. He's, got this blonde hair that comes over his face, and he just holds up the peace sign and just goes, hey, dude.
Yeah, Corey's definitely the throwaway character of the week. Corey, I hate him and he rules. I love Corey. Like, Corey's like, yo, man, little Arthur bro, what's up? I'm Corey. Corey, this is what we know about Corey. He's got cool hair.
Cool in scare quotes, right?
Cool hair. He sucks at video games.
Doesn't play them. Like, Sally mentions later that he doesn't play video games at all, which again, kind of bucking the stereotype a little bit.
I'm not a gamer, bro. It's just me, Corey, in the house. What's up, little aardvark man? What's going on? I feel like my Corey is just like, it's dangerously becoming like Pauly Shore, like leaning tower of cheese.
It's a little bit of Pauly Shore and like a little bit of Matt Riddle.
Yeah, what's up? It's Corey, bro. Shaka. It's me, Corey. Yo, hey guys, Corey, what's up? Hey Arthur, have you ever heard of 311? Woo! It's Corey.
I love this Corey. I wish we got more of this Corey.
Corey, my man. Arthur, my man.
You have to stop. We have to keep going. All right. I love that. Yeah, so Arthur immediately is kind of put off by the fact that Sally has a boyfriend and seems to be, well, Corey. In fact, we get a little bit of a different comic that Arthur is drawing.
Oh my god. What is the line he gives Corey?
I got it right here. It's so, Sally's being attacked by one of the sheep from the video game again. And she's like, "Help me, Arthur." And he's like, "Why don't you get your boyfriend to do it?" And then Corey comes in the comic. He's just like, "I'm just a dorky, floppy-haired teenager. I could barely see." And then the sheep eats them, and just like, it's a little violent, and we get like, it's a little bit like Arthur the incel over here.
Yeah. Oh my god, this gamer girl, she could be with like a gamer like me, but she only wants to be with like airheaded jerks like Corey. Meanwhile, I think, what Corey might lack in personality and style, and gaming prowess, he makes up for with just an insurmountable amount of BDE.
Right.
Wait, that's it.
Wait, BDE?
Oh, well, come on. Have you forgotten the entirety of early 2019 already? Google it real quick.
Oh, what is this? Okay, BDE. I'm gonna feel.
I've forgotten about this one.
I'm gonna feel like a fool.
We talked about BDE with Cave Daddy.
For Pete's sake, I just forgotten about it. For goodness sakes, Lucas, I had successfully forgotten about this nonsense, and you bring it back into my life here. What's going on?
Oh, I was so shocked I dropped my microphone.
It's also because I rarely hear it referred to as BDE, but for the purposes of this podcast, we will continue to do so.
Oh, I'm always calling it that. I'm always thinking about it, and I'm always calling about it. And Corey, I'm sorry, folks, he's got it. Corey
the Chad over here, and Arthur the Virgin. Especially considering that like video games are in the mix. This is like gave me a little bit of like incel douche chill, but it ends up okay by the end of the episode. Arthur is crushed, as the episode title says. And Buster finds him again doing this kind of revenge comic and at the Sugar Bowl, to which Arthur's like, "Don't you have some reading to do?" And he's like, "What? We're not at the library, we're at the Sugar Bowl." Buster ends up giving Arthur advice about like, I wish I'd written it down. I'm sorry I didn't, but it just like this kind of general advice of just like, you give her an inch and she walks all over you and stuff like this. I remember something like that. And Arthur thinks that he's talking about Sally. So in order to get Arthur's mind off of it, Buster invites him over to his place for a sleepover. But it turns out that they have a babysitter that night, and it's Sally. And
Buster in this scene playing the role of the men's group chat. "Keep your head up, King. Your crown's falling."
Anyway,
I'm just being supportive, Will. What's the problem?
Gross. Buster, of course, did not know anything about Sally. We find out later he was talking about the boss of the video game, whose name is No Caloridi, the mommy of all moomies, for the record. So Buster, like Arthur, kind of storms off to Buster's room to read comics and basically stay away from Sally. But Sally brings him in some pizza, and they end up kind of not so much making up, but just kind of Sally saying how much she likes hanging out with him and how much she likes playing video games with him. And thankfully, Arthur accepts that. He appreciates that he can... God help me. That he can do something that Corey can't, which is play video games with her. This is the discussion where she's like, "Yeah, Corey doesn't like to play video games with me, so that's why I had so much fun playing with you." So thankfully, there's a big age gap here, so we don't have to deal with any of like the romantic inferences of this. And I really hope Arthur doesn't grow up to be a forever alone. Like if he goes down the wrong path, he could be. But I have faith.
Let's keep Arthur away from Reddit, and he'll be fine.
Oh, big time. The episode ends off here with Arthur, Buster, and Sally unsuccessfully trying to beat Dark Bunny 6. It must be like Sekiro levels of difficult. And Buster, again, he's just like, "I told you, Arthur." It's like, "She walks all over you." And he's like, "I thought you were talking about something else." He's like, "No, I was talking about the game. What'd you think I was talking about?" And Buster trying to get it out of him, Arthur denying it. And we see actually here the final shot is Buster closing the door to his bedroom, and we see a dedication here in memory of Pat Harris, friend and colleague. Now, I did a bit of research on this. I could not exactly find out who Pat Harris was, but I thought this was a very tasteful way to do it, a tasteful way to put up a tribute to somebody. I wish I knew more, to be honest with you. And if anybody has any information about who Pat Harris was to the Arthur staff or on the Arthur staff, please let us know. And that's the end of that episode. Anything else before we get into final thoughts there, Lucas?
No, I also tried to Google Pat Harris, which I'm not sure why I did, because it's like, why would my like ancillary Google search come up with anything other than you? Though a Pat Harris of the Nova Scotia Barristers Society recently passed away.
Man, speaking of local content, CanCon. This Elwood City Limits episode is rife with CanCon.
Called to the Nova Scotia Bar in 1958. Rest in peace to
Lucas
Pat Harris, 2018.
Okay. Oh, what?
The barrister, not the one from the show.
What did you think of The Good Sport, for goodness sakes?
You know what? So I've been pretty down on season 6. I was realizing I was giving this some thought today, before we were watching these 2 episodes, and I feel like for every single episode in season 6, we were like, I mean, it's not bad, but it's not good, and so I liked The Good Sport. I liked it quite a bit. I thought Michelle Kwan was well used. I thought her performance was fine. I liked that we got a little bit of Jenna in here, and I thought, like, I got a kick out of, sometimes when characters are being bad and they have to kind of be the antagonist or a character that has to learn their lesson, they kind of get so annoying that you're just, like, rooting against them the whole time, and it becomes almost unwatchable because you're just so annoyed with them. But I feel like in this case, like, both Muffy to an extent, but especially Francine, was like entertainingly the villain in this episode. Like, I just go back to that image of like Muffy yelling at her television, and then immediately getting her comeuppance, and I'm like, she's obviously supposed to be bad, but I kind of like how over the top she was being with throwing the party and all that stuff. I don't know, I was kind of into it. And I think it was effective of being like, okay, obviously this is like bad behavior and you would not want to be around someone who's acting like this. So you felt bad for Jenna. You didn't like Muffy, but I feel like it wasn't annoying to watch. Like, I liked how it all played out, and I liked all the imagination sequences of Muffy being bested in skating. I liked this episode.
I really liked it. I agree with you. In fact, it has become one of my favorites of the season, I would say. I don't want to get too much into my feelings on season 6 yet, because we'll have a whole episode for that very soon. But I understand what you're saying. I went into this. I wasn't expecting all that much, but I gotta say, like, Lucas, I was gonna say that Francine was like playing the heel in this episode, and I meant that in the classical sense of like, she really is setting herself up to both be changed and be kind of hoisted by her own petard, like just kind of made to be made a fool of by the end. So she's kind of acting this way in order to get that reaction from you. And I feel that was really well earned. Like, we've had episodes before where characters act mean or insensitive or something like that and kind of don't get their comeuppance, or it's like the wrong kind. And this was an example of when that absolutely works. I thought that the conflict with Francine was very genuine and made sense with her character. I liked learning more about Jenna, and I thought that she was a very good foil for this, and like introducing, kind of giving something for a new character to do instead of, with another character we already kind of know. Muffy, I thought, also played her role very well. She was more despicable than Francine, that's for sure. I thought the inclusion of Michelle Kwan was pretty good. I thought she did a pretty good job with the role that she had. Yeah, I did kind of like the message about, like, because being a good sport, I feel, is something that is hammered home a lot to younger kids, especially younger kids who play sports. And I feel like I really got it this time of, like, not only the reason why Jenna deserved what she got, but also why Francine was acting the way she was. And I thought that the way that she eventually came around made a lot of sense, other than the fact that it was like a dream sequence, but that's Arthur at this point. Like, I'm willing to accept that. So I really like this episode. I also liked Crushed. I think that these were two very good episodes, in my opinion. I'd say Crushed maybe a little bit less, but at the same time, talking about it here, I think it works. It's something I wouldn't expect Arthur to kind of tackle, and they do it very gently, I guess. They never say like Arthur's in love with her, or even that like Arthur likes Sally, but you can tell, like you can just tell by the way he kind of regards her. And I think it's something that a lot of kids go through, is kind of affection for somebody older and kind of figuring out how to deal with those emotions. And of course, I kind of talked about how you're like, oh, Arthur acting like an incel here, but the difference is that Arthur is 8 years old, and the people that he's emulating are like not. They are far older, so it's way less charming. This seemed kind of natural for where this was going. I really liked Sally. I kind of hope we see her again. And I appreciated that she was kind of a different female character for this show. Like we introduce these characters sometimes and never hear from them again. I do hope we see her again.
And Will, you can't be forgetting about my man Corey over there.
Sure, like bring Corey back, if only so Lucas can imitate him more. I also liked the various ways.
Arthur, bro, we're heading down to the Whole Foods to get smoothies. You coming along, man?
Be careful. The beginning of that almost sounded like you were going to start doing Trump. So be careful.
No, Arthur Brand. I didn't vote for Trump. I voted for Jill Stein, bro. She knows that crystals is what you need to vaccinate your kids. I don't know. Bro.
Yeah, and also finally, I liked kind of the different ways that we told this story, through the stick figure animation, through the video game. I thought this was also very good.
Yeah, I pretty much echo your feelings about Crushed as well. I liked it as well as The Good Sport, but maybe not as much, but I still liked it quite a bit. I liked the introduction of the new characters. I think we'd be remiss if we didn't once again bring up, I think actually some of my thoughts on this episode are clouded by how good that opening song is. After that, whatever this episode was going to serve me up, I was along for the ride. But I thought it was a really entertaining episode. Any episode that involves heavy video games, you and I both know that's one of our soft spots. And I was happy to see the return of the hand-drawn segment. Also, it was interesting to see Arthur in a position that we weren't really used to seeing him in, which is having a crush on a girl, kind of. Which is new for the series, and I think it was handled incredibly well. Especially, like, the whole joke they had with, like, him thinking Buster knew exactly what he was talking about, and he wasn't at all.
Yeah, and it's tackled in a different way because, other stories are just like, does Arthur have a crush on Francine, or da-da-da-da? And handled more as kids of just like, ew, no, girls are gross. And this is the first kind of one where it's like, okay, well, maybe we're starting to mature that a little bit. So it was different, and I appreciated it for that. Well, goodness gracious, as we end off this episode of Elwood City Limits, we're getting to the end of Season 6. We are on the season finale next episode. There's going to be a lot of changes happening in the month of April for Elwood City Limits.
That's right. I mean, you're getting married. The WWE Championship will probably change hands at WrestleMania. I am starting my work term, so it's spring has sprung, and it's the season of change.
That's right. And when we talk to you next time, hopefully sooner rather than later, the final episode of Arthur Season 6 includes Arthur loses his marbles and Friday the 13th. As spooky as a Wal-Mart that lost its power, it's Friday the 13th. We'll have to see what's going on there. All right, we hope to see you next time here on Elwood City Limits. Thanks a lot for joining us. And yes, you will be hearing from us as things begin to ramp up here as we anticipate a lot of new life things happening, so to speak. My name's Will Young, and for Lucas Mancini,
reading, we're in the Sugar Bowl.
We'll see you next time. Have a great week, everybody.